The Golden Globes announced the first ever nominees for the Best Podcast category, including Alex Cooper, Mel Robbins, and Amy Poehler. Joe Rogan was snubbed from the list.
OpenAI's Sora app is losing steam. That was bound to happen.
Netflix's acquisition of Warner Brothers could be a win for the creator economy, but not in the way you may think. Hi, Jasmine.
Hey, Kaya.
So today's an exciting day because we are having our first ever guest on the show. Creator Jon Youshaei is going to join us at the end of the episode to talk about his new company, which helps creators with taxes, payroll, and HR. And starting next year, we're going to be bringing on guests more regularly to share their experiences about building companies in this space and to get their takes for what's happening in the industry.
Yeah, we're super excited to have Jon later on in the show. And if there's anybody else you are dying to hear from, whether that is a creator, a platform executive, a CMO, a founder, please let us know in the comments below, or you can email us at tips@scalablepod.com. There are just so many people building really interesting companies within the creator economy, and we want to make sure that we can feature as many as possible. And yes, you heard that correctly. We have solved our domain issues finally, and we are now scalablepod.com.
If you didn't know about our domain issues, let me give you the lowdown. So we had delays ahead of our launch getting the scalablepod.com domain because it's a premium domain. I will not bore you with all the details. So we had to launch with scalablepod.co. But the problem is that we had already recorded our first podcast episode in studio. I had flown out to LA so that we could be in person. And at the end of the episode, I told viewers to go to scalablepod.com for more information. So where there wasn't an opportunity to re-record. So I was like, well, can't we just use AI? Like, isn't that what AI voice cloning is for? So our video producers in post-production were able to use an AI version of my voice to tweak that and have it be scalablepod.co. Literally no one noticed. No one pointed it out to me, including like family members of mine. I mean, I can tell because it's my voice. I think obviously if it was a full podcast episode with AI voices, you'd be able to tell. But yeah, that was our first real use of AI in this case. So very excited to have the domain back.
And thank God for AI in that instance, because you had already flown back to Europe. There's no way you were coming back to LA. But the domain issue was also one of those things that I didn't even think could be a problem as we were building our company. So luckily it's all fixed. And we also merged the scalablepod.co domain with scalablepod.com. So if you've been visiting our old website or emailing our old email addresses, don't worry, they both still work. They will redirect. Speaking of mergers, I know you like that transition. Our first story today is the bidding war for Warner Brothers Discovery and what a Netflix Warner Brothers deal could mean for YouTube and the creator economy.
Okay, so to get you up to speed on the latest, last week Netflix announced that it would acquire Warner Brothers. The $72 billion deal includes the company's film and TV studios, HBO, and HBO Max. But now Paramount, which many expected to be the winner of the bidding war, is coming in with a hostile bid of $108 billion to acquire all of Warner Brothers Discovery. Besides the inevitable antitrust scrutiny, another wrench for Netflix is a new class action lawsuit filed this week from a subscriber to HBO Max who said that the proposed deal threatened to reduce competition in the U.S. subscription video on demand market. So all of this doesn't sound like a creator economy story, but it is.
Yeah, it really feels like every story has a creator economy angle these days. And in this one, it really is the ripple effect that a Netflix Warner Brothers deal could have on YouTube, which is obviously one of the biggest platforms for creators. And as we wrote in Tuesday's newsletter, the deal would put pressure on YouTube, which we know has been dominating streaming charts. And it's also been trying to move further onto living room screens, really as it is trying to win over streaming ad dollars. That, of course, is Netflix's turf. And in return, Netflix has been courting YouTubers. It's also been courting podcasters. In October, it struck a deal with Spotify to bring some of the top video podcasts to Netflix. And the catch with that deal was that the full episodes of those shows could no longer live on YouTube. There is, the possibility that a combined Netflix and Warner Brothers could give Netflix more runway to strike similar types of deals with creators. It could also potentially give creators new channels to distribute their content. One thing, we heard about was that Netflix expects to continue theatrical releases. This is still really speculative. It's a very, very big if. I think the key word in that sentence is expects. And later in a call, Netflix's CEO, Ted Sarandos, said that theatrical release timelines will evolve. So it's still really unclear exactly what happens to that. He also did say, too, that Netflix content wouldn't necessarily be coming to theaters, and this really applied to Warner Brothers content, which, aside for a few shows on HBO Max, Warner Brothers really hasn't pushed as heavily into creators as Netflix has. But the deal, no matter what, would create a larger creator-friendly rival for YouTube. And that could prompt some pretty interesting moves from YouTube.
Yeah, and the reason we think this is that we've seen time and time again that competition forces companies to innovate. I think the rise of TikTok is the perfect example. For a long time before TikTok, new major social media platform had not sprung up. So the platforms were kind of sitting pretty. YouTube had long form, Instagram had photos, Snapchat had disappearing videos. They all had their lane. And then suddenly TikTok comes in. All this attention shifts there, and it forced all of these platforms to compete, roll out new features. They launched creator funds. They launched their own short form video features. They launched their own editing apps to compete with CapCut. So all of this stuff happened as a result of TikTok's rise. It wouldn't have necessarily happened, especially not on the same timeline, without TikTok. So I think when you are, you don't have competition, it's very tempting to just kind of stay status quo, roll things out, improve your product slowly. You really need the fire under you to do so. Examples of how YouTube could respond kind of to a Netflix Warner Brothers deal. They could bring back funding for creators to develop content. Obviously, they shut down YouTube Originals, but maybe that's something that they bring back. They could start offering deals to creators to stay on the platform. I mean, we saw this earlier this year with Instagram trying to take advantage of uncertainty around TikTok, and they started cutting those deals again to TikTok creators to make reels, exclusive reels on the platform. Maybe that's something YouTube does, especially as Netflix is bringing on podcasters who are big on YouTube. They could do a number of things from, dedicated ad sales people for YouTuber content. They could provide a better pipeline to get creators onto bigger screens. Obviously, YouTube is already super focused on the living room, already doing things with its products to make creator content into episodes to make it look more like streaming platforms. And that's coming as Tubi and other fast channels are also looking at creator content. So long list of things, and I'm sure we missed stuff, but I do think that will kick YouTube into gear if the deal goes through.
Yeah, and even one of those things I think would be a really big win for all creators, right? The funding question is really interesting because last year I predicted that YouTube might revisit originals, and a lot of that had to do with the competition with Netflix at the time. Now, YouTube has repeatedly said that it won't be doing that, but I never say never. Netflix, for example, said for a really long time that it wouldn't launch ads, and here we are. Obviously, it is still a long shot, but also, as Kaya said last week, it's all about timing and execution with these things. And this really could be the right time, and a Netflix Warner Brothers deal could be another push in that direction. I mean, there's already signs that YouTube is doing more to support some of its top creators. It's rolling out more tools, like Kaya mentioned, to help them organize their, shows into episodes and make it feel more premium or Netflix-like. It's also rolling out tools to help them score more brand deals. There's a creator marketplace, for example, that's in beta. And then there's OpenCall, which has met quite a bit of criticism, but still is an indication that YouTube is focusing more on helping its creators make money outside of ad revenue sharing, of course. And then when it comes to Hollywood, I mean, there were several creators like Michelle Khare, as well as Good Mythical Morning, that were up for Emmys this year. And YouTube hosted a big For Your Consideration event that I actually attended in May. So you can see that there are some indications that YouTube is starting to take this a little bit more seriously. That said, we do have to mention that all of this is very far from certain. Even if Netflix, does win the bidding war in the end, it is also going to have to deflect a lot of those antitrust concerns that Kaya mentioned earlier. What is really interesting here, though, too, is that I think YouTube is going to be the strongest argument that Netflix has. It's probably also going to argue that it competes with platforms like TikTok and Instagram for, time and attention, which means its share of the overall competitive market isn't actually that big at all. But anyway, expect lots of twists and turns, lots of drama, and more to come from this.
Speaking of YouTube, the world's largest YouTuber took the stage recently for a very rare interview.
Yes, MrBeast appeared at New York Times' annual DealBook Summit, which is always a who's who of business leaders. It always also makes a ton of news. If you remember back in 2023, that's where Elon Musk, who owns social platform X, famously told advertisers to F off. Last year, DealBook also hosted Alex Cooper, so MrBeast is not the first creator they've had on stage. But this was really notable for a lot of reasons. The first is that MrBeast rarely gives interviews unless he's talking to other creators. The other is that he seemed kind of rattled at times by Andrew Ross Sorkin's line of questioning. He didn't seem fully prepared for being in the hot seat. At one point, he said something like, "You ask really good questions, not just how a viral video is made." But luckily, he also had his company's CEO there to jump in. It did kind of come off as endearing, though. I think there were a lot of chuckles in the audience and some lighthearted laughter, so it kind of felt like they were in on the joke. But I think overall, it just shows how important it is for these creators as they're building companies to bring in seasoned business leaders so that, they can continue doing the work that they're good at. And MrBeast is, of course, best in class at what he does on YouTube.
Totally. And his CEO is Jeff Housenbolt, who is an ex-SoftBank investor. He's very well known in Silicon Valley. And I think the other thing the interview really showed was it sort of gave some intel into the ambitions for the business. And I think Jeff helped with that. But of course, MrBeast deserves all the credit for, really studying YouTube and learning how to gain attention on the platform. So they talked about, everything from a mobile company called, of course, Beast Mobile, which would have a built-in financial services platform. They talked about matchmaking Fortune 1000 brands with creators. And to sum it up, Jeff Housenbolt said, our mission is to be the most impactful entertainment brand in the world. Of course, they also talked about Feastables. They confirmed the $5 billion valuation for MrBeast's company, which has been floating around. So you could really see them positioning this as a huge business that is so beyond just, a huge YouTube channel. The other thing that stood out to me was we got his point of view, Jimmy's point of view on why he wanted to do the Amazon show, because that's a question that I've gotten a lot where, yes, of course, there's cachet with doing a show with a streamer, but like a YouTuber like MrBeast has so 450 million subscribers to be exact, that like, why does he need Amazon, right? Like he already has a huge audience. He doesn't have producers. He doesn't have people telling him what to do. He has full reign. He owns it. He monetizes it 100%. So it was interesting because he was asked like, why do that when you have this level of scale? And, he said, when you go to YouTube, you don't go there to watch a 10 episode series, right? And there's so much more of a story you can tell over the course of a season of a show compared to a 30-minute YouTube video or 10-minute YouTube video. And it was also really interesting because it seems like everyone in the world knows MrBeast, right? But they actually don't know him just from YouTube. So he said that he's had a few instances. He was at a basketball game where someone came up to him and said, "Oh, like I really liked your Amazon show." And he said, "Oh, how does it compare to my YouTube channel?" And the guy was like, "You do YouTube?" So, and you could see MrBeast in that moment being like, "Oh, I guess like people don't know who I am." And he also said this person was older and that streaming services are also a way to reach an older audience. So very fun interview. fun to see kind of a seasoned journalist interview him and ask him some hard-hitting questions.
What MrBeast didn't say on stage, though, I think, is, the paycheck that comes with one of these types of deals with a streaming service. So, of course, he did later say that he lost money, I think, on the Amazon show. But the prestige, right? I think, there is still a prestige associated with Hollywood and streamers that even as YouTube has grown, it just doesn't have. And that's why you hear a lot of these top creators want to strike these kinds of deals. I mean, if you think back to that For Your Consideration event I just talked about, it was Rhett and Link from Good Mythical Morning on stage. And, the interviewer asked them, why do you want an Emmy? And they basically just said, because we just want it. And so I think it's that kind of legitimacy, validation, and prestige that comes with sort of traditional media and Hollywood. But the other thing, that was so interesting to me about the MrBeast interview is when he talked about that matchmaking platform for brands and creators. I mean, TikTok, Instagram, and even Snap have sort of dabbled in their own creator marketplaces. They haven't been very successful. YouTube has one in beta, which I think is partially just for optics to show that it's, keeping pace with TikTok and Instagram. And on Tuesday, actually, Substack just released one too. I think the problem with a lot of the matchmaking platforms that are out there right now is that they're really good for brands and creators who are new to influencer marketing, but established brands and established creators really don't find a lot of value in them. Many of them have managers and agents who are, helping them strike deals. A lot of them are already in long-term established relationships. But we're also in this moment now where we're seeing a lot more creators trying to go direct to brands and advertisers and vice versa. I mean, earlier this year, Colin and Samir hosted a creator upfront with Spotter, for example, and I believe that LTK had one too. And so MrBeast's version of this kind of does feel like a combination of the two, right? It is this platform that is established by a creator. And I think if it's platform agnostic, meaning that you can strike deals on a TikTok, a YouTube, and Instagram, it might actually end up being more interesting to creators and brands than what's currently out there. So, we'll be watching to see how that all plays out. So sticking with the theme of prestige for creators, the Golden Globes actually just announced their first ever nominees for the Best Podcast category.
Yeah, so the full list is Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard, Alex Cooper's Call Her Daddy, Good Hang with Amy Poehler, Mel Robbins' podcast, Smartless, which is from Will Arnett, Jason Bateman, and Sean Hayes, and NPR's Up First, which is a daily news show. One thing that definitely stuck out to me is so many women on this list. Also very interesting to note, Amy Poehler only started her show in March of this year. So, I mean, obviously, look, she has long Hollywood ties. She is extremely famous, but it shows how quickly she has built this show. And you see it on social media. She's had a really smart strategy with social. Of course, she's had huge big name celebrities on the show. Also, some notable snubs. Joe Rogan, who topped all the major charts this year as the most popular podcast, was not included in the list. And also snubbed were right-wing personalities from Tucker Carlson to Candace Owens to Megyn Kelly. None of those made the cut for the nominee list.
Yeah, I love that there are so many women on this list. I mean, I think we often think of podcasting as this predominantly male industry. And in so many ways, that's true. Like most of the top podcasts are made by men. Men are also twice as likely as women to actually start a podcast, according to new data that we got from Sounds Profitable, which is the trade organization for the podcasting industry. I don't think that that is going to come as a surprise to anybody. But what might be surprising from the data was that it also showed that once men and women have started a podcast, they are equally likely to stick with it. And what that says is that the problem for women in podcasting isn't necessarily that there isn't an audience for their content, but rather that there are other barriers to entry that are preventing them from even giving it a shot, right? And so I asked the authors of the report sort of what they thought those barriers to entry could be, and they talked about the pivot to video and how women are more quick to be judged by their appearance, and that might make them less likely to want to appear on a video podcast. And I think there's some truth to that. I also think just the overall perception of podcasting being this male space is also preventing a lot of women from even trying.
Yeah, and I think it's something we thought about a lot, right? We're two women. It's a super crowded space. There's not a lot of, female-focused podcasts about business, about the business of the creator economy. It feels like a lot of the female podcasters are more in the lifestyle genre. We definitely thought about what it means to be on video every week, but we knew obviously that's the way the market's going. It opens up so many more revenue opportunities. And I think to build on that research, there was also other research from USC Annenberg from November, which got a lot of pickup. And a lot of the headlines were like, podcasting is as bro-y as it seems. And they analyzed Spotify data from, I think it was 600 of the most popular podcasts of last year. And they found that within the top 100, nearly 2/3 were hosted by men, and nearly 3/4 of all guests were also male. So it's not just the hosts, but also the guests that people are bringing on. And it also found that women were particularly underrepresented in business, tech, sports, fitness, and comedy. I mean, what other genres are there? That's like every genre.
Yeah. And look, there are a few companies out there that really are working hard to promote female voices. I'm thinking about Dear Media or Lemonada, for example. But I think just having the Golden Globes have so many women in their nominations is just that extra moment of validation, and also just, brings more awareness to the fact that there are so many women in the space. Okay, but before we move on, Kaya, predictions. Who do you think is going to win?
Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to say Alex Cooper because I think her show has been so long standing and has also evolved so much. And she's like so synonymous with podcasting. So I'm going to go with her. What are you thinking?
I would love to see Alex Cooper win. I would love to see any of them win, honestly, but especially Alex Cooper because I love her show. But I think it's going to be Amy Poehler. I mean, that is also a great show. You're right. She has done such a good job promoting it on social. I'm obsessed with the episode with Dakota Johnson where she talks about her dream about Maddie Healy turning into an asparagus, which you have to watch if you haven't. It is absolutely hysterical. And she's also a Hollywood celebrity. And I'm just not sure that the Golden Globes is quite ready for a true social media creator to win an award.
Yeah, so maybe it'll go to Amy Poehler or Smartless. We'll see. We'll see. I will definitely be tuning in February.
Like any one of them would deserve it.
Totally. It's a great list.
Here's what else is going on. Stephen Bartlett, who hosts the hit podcast Diary of a CEO, has invested in another podcast, Hot, Smart, Rich by Maggie Sellers Room. The investment is actually through Bartlett's company Flight Story, which is a media and investment arm of Stephen.com. That company raised funding in October at a $425 million valuation, leaving a lot of people, including us, wondering what he was going to do with all of that money. So now we have some answers. There's also a ton of support for this on social media. Here's one really good example.
I think someone who has done such a good job at building community is Maggie Sellers. She's created Hot, Smart, Rich out of shared values and shared goals. She's one of the strongest communities I've seen, and I'm in her community and find so much value from it.
I think what's so interesting about this is that this could potentially be the start of an emerging trend of creators backing other creators. I think we've seen different flavors of it, right? I think like Alex Cooper's Unwell company, that's more her incubating other creators and bringing them into the fold and helping them launch podcasts. But I think like talent recognizes talent, and it also shows how much Bartlett is diversifying his business, right? Of course, he has a hugely successful podcast, but he also has a podcast tech company called Flight Studio, which does development, growth, monetization. He obviously has this investment arm, which I didn't even know about until this deal was announced. So he is thinking about his business super holistically. And it's so interesting because he has so much success with his podcast and it's become such a popular show, but he's thinking bigger and also making some bets on other people that he think will grow to the same level. Okay, up next, OpenAI's Sora is seeing some fading excitement. I think it had this kind of big moment when it launched. It shot to the top of the App Store. Katie Notopoulos at Business Insider was the first to kind of point out last month that it seems like, I think the headline was like, I'm bored of Sora, which the app, of course, turns text prompts into videos, but it seems like it's flopping. It had a lot of excitement, and now Bloomberg came out with a story noting the same and pointing out that the social networking aspects of the app are also falling flat. I thought this quote from a user quoted in the story summed it up pretty well. She said, quote, "No one interacts with my posts and none of my real life friends are on the app, so my content mostly sits untouched."
Yeah, I mean, this was bound to happen, right? I think app download charts, are a snapshot of a moment in time. They generally aren't a good indicator of long-term sustainability for any one app. And novelty wears off really quickly. And it's very, very hard to break through into the social space. The last one that was able to do that at scale really was TikTok, and it had the pandemic to help. I mean, the novelty with Be Real wore off really fast, and it's still around, but barely, right? I think what's really interesting and important to note here, too, is that I don't think the end goal for OpenAI is to build a social networking app with Sora that competes with the likes of Instagram or TikTok, right? I think it's more about building excitement around AI overall and turning it from something scary into something fun. It is also an enormous source of user data that OpenAI can then use to train its models and improve its overall business. That's one reason, for example, that we saw X and XAI merge earlier this year.
All right, that's all the news we have for you this week, but super excited to bring Jon on to hear more about his company. Welcome to Scalable, Jon.
Thanks, guys. I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you, and you are our first guest.
I know. I've been following your pod since you guys got started in your newsletter, and so to be your first guest is an honor. Thanks again for having me here.
Well, we really appreciate it, and we really appreciate you being here. But before we get into all of our questions, for our viewers who don't know who you are, could you tell us a little bit about you and the work that you do?
Yeah, I used to work at YouTube and Instagram for 8 years, and leading a lot of their creator efforts. And funny things happen when you spend your days working with creators. You begin spending your nights and weekends wondering, hey, maybe I could do this as well. And so I went for it about 3 years ago, and I'm proud to say now we have a show that gets millions of views. We interview creators from MrBeast to Marquez Brownlee. We even had Steph Curry on the show, and just trying to really show that intersection of traditional and digital, and educate creators through interviews, behind the scenes, breakdown videos, just a lot of stuff to help educate and take everything I learned from the inside and now on the outside and share that for folks.
We definitely want to talk to you about your creator journey and that transition from the tech platforms to being a creator yourself. But first, we want to talk about your new company that you launched this week. So tell us about Boring Stuff. Love the name, by the way. Very fun.
Thank you. My co-founder, Zach, deserves a credit for the name. But basically, I saw it, throughout this journey of being a creator, you feel a lot of, different kinds of pain. You kind of take a look at, what's something that I could potentially provide a solution to, especially, building a platform for creators. And believe me, I never thought I'd be in the business of taxes and accounting and helping creators with that thing. There's that old saying, how does it go? There's only two things certain in life is death and taxes. And I'm not starting a morgue, So, I guess the next most certain thing is taxes. And especially with creators, creators just, I don't know what it is. Creators are so smart creatively, intellectually. Obviously, I'm generalizing a lot of different creators, but I kid you not, I met so many creators who lost so much money from taxes, messy bookkeeping, working with accountants who, quite frankly, are dinosaurs when it comes to understanding how the creator economy works, how transactions, how revenue works. And they missed out, and not just on a lot of write-offs and ability to maximize their business, but just frankly mistakes. And I was you know what? Maybe there's something we could do in this space. And I wanted to be really thoughtful and careful. And I also give a lot of credit to my partner, Amanda. She had a lot of just, the foresight to bring this business in place. And then we were talking with Zach. He had a similar idea and we kind of joined forces. And we brought in Varun, who really has the accounting and, financial background. So all that together and the clients we now have between Arac, the Try Guys, Yes Theory, and other creators, I'm really excited to see where this goes. And that's a sentence I never thought I'd say about accounting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. One of the things that we hear all the time from creators is that the business side of things overall really is a big pain point for them. I mean, so many of them are creatives, and now we're seeing, big creators bring on executives, right? CEOs, CFOs to help run their companies. With that in mind, though, what is it exactly that you think that, accountants or traditional businesses don't really understand about the business of the creator economy or creators? And what is that disconnect there? And how does Boring Stuff help solve that?
Even talking before the know-how, it's the speed. So creators, it's funny, creators work fast and last minute. And any accountant or business person who tries to change that just does not understand the fundamental nature of the business. Like I will have weeks where it's like, okay, it's kind of a normal, like nothing is ever light, but it's sometimes normal. And then I'll have weeks where things are so chaotic and we have deadlines and we have sponsorships and we have videos and we have guests coming on the show. Oh my God. And now I got to file my quarterly taxes. It's like, it's just like everything is coming to a head at the last minute. And basically we've trained our accountants as like a concierge service. Like you need it last minute, you need quick turnaround, we're there for you. In terms of write-offs, like understanding, okay, so home studio, how much of that can you write off and save as far as expenses? There's a lot of things that come to like when it's like on camera purchase or off camera. So there's a lot of nuances that, you know, again, I got to give Amanda a lot of credit. Like she went through this process and became so informed and educated about tax code. And then we started bringing in accountants and just like making sure we're training and vetting the right ones.
And what's the business model? You're opting for a retainer model, but tell us a little bit about what that means and kind of why go that route versus some sort of revenue sharing or other structure.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Whenever I hear revenue sharing and it's like right off the bat, I'm like, okay, whoa, like when did we get married, you know? And for us, like a retainer model, like we're not trying to take a piece of your business, we're trying to focus on the things that you need the most help with, and taxes, bookkeeping, payroll, and just trying to assess like, okay, what are the costs on our end to service that and do it in a way that meets creators like where they are, like works fast, like speaks like in their language, doesn't like have all this jargon, and how can we put a monthly retainer to it that makes sense? And then by the way, it's like a buffet. So it's like, okay, if they want more services, like a few creators want HR and payroll, like, okay, like there's more discussions to flex that up or down.
So I am super curious about how you brought boring stuff to life. So what was the timeline, right? From idea to launch, what were the steps that you had to take in order to bring this to market?
Yeah, so here's the inside scoop. Like, so a year ago, Amanda and I were like, why are taxes like, it's either too expensive and you got to hire a firm, or you go with somebody who doesn't understand creators like we talked about. And we'd been getting approached by a lot of folks like, hey, why don't you start a thumbnail agency, or why don't you start a editing house, or what, well, like just a lot of things that I think other creators I'm sure have been pitched. And we're like, I don't know. I like this accounting thing seems like a big problem. It's a reoccurring need. It's a subscription business, and at the end of the day, like I really believe that it takes away creators from the work that makes them successful and creative. Simultaneously, like Zach, who has managed Airac and Yes Theory, and I think he's so sharp, and he was like thinking about accounting and finance, and we just do catch ups every now and then, and he was telling me about it. I was like, we're thinking about something similar as well. And when two different parties have a similar idea, there's probably some validity in it to test it. And then, so eventually, like, we were like, you know what, why don't we join forces?
So many startups kind of in the 2021 venture boom era tried to do, you know, tax services and accounting for creators. A lot of them raised big VC money. I covered many of them when I was at the Information. Very few of them succeeded. So curious kind of what's different about your approach, and are you learning anything from kind of what didn't work for other startups in the past? Slow
and steady. Like there's a reason why we haven't talked about it over a year, and we've really tried to perfect the service and be our own guinea pigs. Like, so in terms of like the venture-backed businesses, and like I like we've talked to a few VCs, but for us, it's like, let's just provide the best service possible. Let's scale with the folks that we know like really are getting value from this, and then go from there. And there's a lot of ideas of like where I think we could take this and hopefully like grow in the space.
Was there a reason that you wanted to do this now? Was this just something that you felt like was untapped, or was there a certain reason for the timing of launching now?
Yeah, I whenever I do interviews with creators, it's like also a great hangout session, and you get to hear about like what's going well, what's going bad, and the more stories I heard about, like it just come out of the woodwork. It'd be like they talk about their financials, like, you know, I like to ask about a lot of specific stuff and numbers in the interviews, and there's a lot of off-camera conversations after that, and they ask for advice, and then just after, I'm hearing more and more conversations, and I'm hearing it from some of the smartest minds, and I'm realizing, well, this is just a need that I think we can help a ton with, and if we build the right team, we're uniquely positioned to grow it.
So Speaking of building a team, your background obviously isn't in taxes or accounting. Are you planning on hiring or contracting tax accountants? What does, your future hires look like?
We already are. I mean, the whole like boring stuff as a separate business, like that is like we're like hiring, vetting, like accountants, like these aren't just people who like oh, I think I understand creators. No, they understand creators. They've gone through our process, and they have an accounting background and have done it for years. So these are like vetted, certified experts, like coming along with like the packaging and the communication and the speed that creators deserve. So it's not and we're actively hiring and growing, especially now that we're publicly launched. So this past year has been, okay, do we have a deep bench and roster for that? And Varun, my other co-founder, is directly responsible for that. So we wanted to bring in somebody who really like speaks to that, and each of the co-founders have a different specialty, so we could hopefully divide and conquer and be in really great shape.
Well, how are you measuring success? And do you have sort of like an end goal, high-level mission with the company?
Our goal to grow, I mean, I used to be like, hey, here's my 5-year plan, here's my 10-year plan, but things change so quickly that I just want to build a great, solid business that serves our clients and brings in good cash flow and be able to do bigger and bigger things in the future. So if you're asking about like, oh, is there an exit plan I mean, I just want to build a solid business. I know our distribution with our channel is continuing to grow, and I just want to do right by our audience and now our customers.
So boring stuff obviously, solves a problem that you found in the market as you've been a creator yourself. And like you, I mean, Kaya and I covered creators and social media and technology for so long. We had been thinking for a very long time about joining the creator economy ourselves, and here we are. It was, a pretty scary transition, which is part of the reason that we decided to do it together. Curious to know, what finally pushed you to make the jump?
I'm curious, like to hear your perspective too, but I don't know. I think there comes a time where you take a risk, and I think I remember one creator like kind of walked me through his finances when I was at Instagram, and he's like, and I'm like, what? Like, you make how much per month? And just seeing that number, and because sometimes you hear like, oh, creators are becoming a thing, and I don't know. I had so many ideas that I felt I was like scratching the surface. And the other thing is, Amanda and I were like starting to plan our life. We were about to get married. We were thinking about when we're going to have a kid. And I was like, all right. And then we started pooling our savings together in terms of, all right, let's give this a real shot, because I didn't want to just go into it as a hobby. Like, I wanted to come out with a big swing. And that's why our first interview was like, we flew to Puerto Rico to interview Jake and Logan Paul, and that took a lot of money, and with the crew. And so, and since then, I mean, it was just like, I was a big believer on like production value of the interview, both from pre-production to the questions. And so that took a lot of savings to like pour in, and just, I mean, there's so many stories of like interviews and stuff that I'm still shocked that they happened. I was like, I have to go for this, and I can't be one of those coulda, woulda, shoulda like parents. Yeah. Like when I talk to my daughter about like, I had this dream, and like, yeah, I don't know what would have happened, but here I am at year 40 of corporate. Like, and there's nothing wrong with corporate and working that job, and but I do think there's something just worthwhile of just answering that what if question.
I think that resonates a lot. I mean, one thing you said is support, right? Having supportive people in your life, having a plan. You talked about savings. You had kind of your content and launch strategy. I think Jasmine and I went through similar. What, beyond kind of some of those logistical things, is there anything else you did to really like prepare for that transition? And also curious what's been the most surprising thing that you've learned since taking the jump? Because I think you, Jasmine, and I all talked to a lot of creators. We kind of went into it knowing, the burnout, the risks, I feel like we all came into it educated, but even us in the few months that we've been doing this, I feel like have been really surprised at some of the challenges of building in this space.
Yeah, and first out, Kai, I just want to agree with what you said, and just like for anybody listening, this job is more stressful than my last jobs combined. But I would not trade the stress of this job for the stress of those jobs. It's very odd to say that, because I'm working longer nights. I'm up like I feel responsibility. Like I just when we're hiring, I'm like, oh my God, like this is they're leaving their job. They're starting with us. I don't know. I think the thing that that also prepared me to answer your question is you guys know imposter syndrome, that the term that's like thrown around a lot. You know,
Yes. Do we know
like,
it?
It's like I'm also a big believer. I don't know many people that talk about this public. I'm also a big believer in anti-imposter syndrome. Anti-imposter syndrome, in my view, is like, you ever have that feeling when you're in a conversation and you know something, or you've been studying it, or you're experienced it, or you practiced it, and then somebody across the table says something that is so out of pocket, like it's such BS that it's like, what are you talking about? Like, you say that silently to yourself, and that there's like a little fire that burns. I felt that so much when I was at YouTube and Instagram, when I would watch videos about, here's how the algorithm works. Meanwhile, like, I just met with the PM and Eng team, and we're talking about like search and discovery and so many times, like, I just heard things that people claim to be experienced about when they weren't, when I had put in the time. And I think as a creator, especially like trying to share education, like, if you feel that way, there's probably a point of view that you have that can be articulated in a video, in a newsletter, whatever form of media you follow. And you should, at some point, like, I'm not saying it's for everyone, but just follow that a little bit further.
One of the other things I think that really resonated with me that you talked about was how this is the most stressful job you've ever had, and yet you still wouldn't trade it for any of your previous roles. I feel that deeply every single day. I mean, there's so much going on. We're writing a newsletter, a podcast, we're trying to plan an event in the spring of next year, and it's just being pulled from direction to direction, and there's a lot of highs, there's also a lot of lows. And there's also, moments of real frustration where you think you're on the right path and you think you're growing, and then you realize that there's still so much more runway. So I'm curious to know, how long did it really take you to grow from, that Jake and Logan Paul video out in Puerto Rico to sort of where you are now? And did you set certain growth goals for yourself, or a timeline you wanted to achieve a specific metric, for example, or a specific threshold?
Your question like speaks to two different parts of me. Like, I feel like before I started this job, I could list off a bunch of goals, and honestly, it's it's a bunch of science fiction. Like, I could tell you, like, we had this revenue growth, we had this subscriber goal, and now I'm just like, okay, how do I make the best next video possible? And I know that's a cliche answer, but the caveat is, and become more efficient. And become more process like oriented. So we do a lot of remote interviews, and I've noticed the process of that. There's a lot of things that are repetitive no matter what city we're in, and we just try to dial it in as much as possible. And now we have like a checklist of like, okay, do we have like this camera set up on this tripod? Do we have this lens? Are we zoomed in this much? Like, that's the shot. And I think that's where like Amanda is just like shined in helping grow our business, and having like just like bringing like much more of a production know-how, and making sure we're streamlined. Like even more recently, this will go out like more publicly soon, but as a little teaser, we're working on like a 8-episode documentary series that's going to be coming out next year. And just like that, like, has been like a huge pre-production process, production, like between camera operators, audio guys, like DITs, like just, how do you organize like all the storage and footage, like when you're filming with 5-6 cameras every day, like, so it's like, okay, can we make the next best thing creatively, but also be sound operationally, so that unlocks more of those opportunities? And so far it has. Like, I can't believe some of the things that we've been able to do travel shoots where we go to England or we go to Greenville to film with Jimmy, and just like, it's been unreal. And I think that's been unlocked because we've been able to make this a sustainable engine.
Can you tell us what the documentary is about?
Yeah, we filmed with Jimmy as we were with him for 45 days as he filmed Beast Game Season 2. And so we did behind the scenes of like how he went about that, his life, his team, like just how they pulled off one of the biggest shows in history. I can't wait for that to come out. It's going to be, I'm beyond excited because it's been probably 5 months of work now. And just like while running the YouTube channel and like building that, and just like I really want to do more in the unscripted and documentary space, and I can't wait for folks to see this, because like the initial episodes that we've been putting together and just sharing, it's some of the work I'm most proud of, and I'm so grateful to Jimmy and the team and Amazon for this opportunity.
To go back, you sort of talk about implementing these processes and making the best videos possible. What do you think it takes to really make it in this business? Is it creativity? Is it being organized? Is it hiring the right people around you? Is it a combination of those? Like, what does it really take to see success as a creator today?
A clear point of view, you know, and articulating that, and then also trying to, again, figure out a way to make that sustainable. Like I know so many people who are great artistically and they live in that zone and they make such amazing stuff, but there's not a business model behind it. And sometimes it's okay. That's a hobby. It's okay. Or you could tell they go into a format that other people have done, or like podcasting, like people have done that for so long before. And so, one example is like I'd watch a lot of like interviews and podcasts. I'm like, what's going on with the intro? It's like so whack, it's like it could be so much more interesting. So we spend just as much time on the intro now as we do the interview. And that's like, sometimes an hour and a half, 2-hour interview. And then versus a 60-second trailer, we'll spend the same amount of time to make it really feel like a movie trailer. I think it takes a point of view, and then it takes enough like humility and understanding to be like, okay, I'm probably gonna like mess up, and I gotta develop a like I made so many mistakes and so many things I spent on. I get shiny object syndrome and all that, but it's like, okay, was that worth it? What about it was, and let's make it better for the next time.
So what is your tech stack like? What products are you using? What different types of tools? How much are you using AI in your work?
We use Opus Clip quite a bit. Full disclosure, they've been a sponsor and partner of us for quite a bit now, just to go from long form to short form and clip things. And just that's another thing like I've been really excited about is like, a lot of the tools and like tech that we use, because they're creator tools, they oftentimes come to us and be like, hey, can we do like a monthly consulting in addition to a sponsorship? Because my background being in like product marketing, it's like like wearing that hat, though I don't talk about it as much publicly, it's like something that's been really great. I mean, we use Discord to organize like our team internally. We also have a public facing Discord, so I like being able to like go between my internal team and make sure that we have different threads for different video projects that we have, and those are broken down by like trailer, body, like thumbnail, graphics, etc. And then we have our public facing one where like folks who go to the created Discord, and then they get thumbnail feedback, idea feedback. Yeah, it's so funny. I don't think about like I don't know, like, is there a specific tool or thing you're curious about? I don't think about, like, I've never written one of those X posts where it's like, my tech stack is this, blah, blah, blah. Like, I maybe I should do a proper audit. Those are the ones that stick out.
I mean, for us, like, it's G Suite. Like, we live in G Suite. Google Sheets, Google Docs. Like, that's critical to our business, which, like, I hear that from a lot of creators. But, like, what are the products you use that are just, like, critical to get done what you need to get done?
Ours also includes Canva, though, I have to say, because I have been learning Canva for the past month and a half, and it has not been easy. Not because of Canva being difficult, but because it is an entirely new skill set for me.
Yeah, it's like it's interesting. Yeah, we use Canva. Like it's I like to because again, I'm a big believer in everyone on our team is a designer. So we have folks who, if they want to sketch out a concept before somebody in Adobe After Effects really gets technical with it and designs it, we'll do it in Canva or even like Keynote or PowerPoint just to get like a mock-up and then make it visual and be like, because a lot of our interviews, like there's like 3 editors on the trailer, the body, and then the graphics. And the graphics could get time consuming as well, but when we can mock it up and use Canva, it's been great.
I'm sure the design ethos also comes from your Instagram days, because Adam Mosseri is famously a designer, and I know that app has been very, very design focused from the beginning.
Oh, 100%. And not to mention, like, Instagram is so thoughtful about design that, like, if you ever go to their offices, like, you'll notice, I don't know if they still do this, but they won't put a trash can on the outside of a conference room because they want everything to be, like, tidy and all that, and that goes from like the conference room to like the app, and so there's like to your point, there's definitely a lot of things I learned when I was at Instagram that we apply now.
To go back to AI for a second, how are you feeling thinking about AI? I think there's some fear, there's some excitement, but curious, do you think it's overhyped, underhyped for creators? How big of a threat is it to the creator economy? What's your point of view?
Well, I'm the eternal optimist, so anything I say, you got to just like filter through that. Like I'm like the glass is not just half full; it's like tipping over type of guy. So I really believe that for creativity, like like there's a lot of other conversation that could be had about AI and like job automation and all that, that I think is just like a lot of hard truths and can be scary. But for creativity, I think like it's going to be such an amplifier. And also, I think this is one of the reasons that if folks are listening and they're thinking about becoming a creator, it's going to get harder and harder, because if you don't have a brand or if you don't have trust, the more content that comes out through AI, deciphering the BS from what's been there. Like the fact that somebody could go on ChatGPT and say like, write something in the voice of Jon Youshaei, and there's enough data there and there's enough public posts that can give them an output. But if they do that, it's like a worse version or a copy versus something that we've been building for years now. I feel like every creator has to develop that moat and develop that brand and develop that trust, because it's going to get easier and easier to put out better and better output.
Final question. What advice do you have for us as first-time founders and creators, actually?
I don't. My micro answer, like in terms of like what like advice and all that, is like, it sounds so crazy, but thumbnails matter. I was just looking at your thumbnails before, and I feel like even more people could be like getting value from the conversations and the breakdowns that you guys had. Like I don't know if, like you mentioned, Jasmine, you're like working in Canva. Like I remember when I was like just like trying to do the design and try to like figure that out while doing the interview prep, while trying to like make sure the audio sounded good. So I just think about. Yeah,
So we need better thumbnails. You're being super nice, but you're going to coach us on our thumbnails offline.
Well, and that's like if YouTube is a focus versus like, like news. Like you guys are fantastic writers and reporters and bring a real like journalistic like background to an industry that really needs it. So it's like, okay, is written more of that, and because so I don't know. I don't have a lot of advice for you guys, because I think you're so well versed in what you've done, and more than anything, I think the biggest thing was like taking the leap and the risk that you have, and now it's just about like the time and the reps and the hours.
Thank you so much, Jon. We so appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you back here next Thursday.